Good morning, everyone. Mike, thank you very much for the introduction, and I want to thank Bud and your entire team here for your indulgence as my schedule changed yesterday. There's a guy who lives up on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and when he calls you to press yourself into service, you go do it. So we were in St. Paul yesterday, and you may have heard about it. We talked yesterday about the announcement of the NOFA for the Tiger program, the sixth round of Tiger, $600 million program, and the application period will go through April 28th. But we're really excited about this program coming back, particularly in light of the fact that since the Recovery Act, this is the first time Congress has actually put a stamp of affirmation on the project by appropriating money for it specifically since the program's inception. It's been living off of continuing resolutions, but it's nice to see that program done, and I want to say it wouldn't have happened without the work of a bipartisan group of senators, but no senator more than Senator Murray from the state of Washington, who has really helped us do that. I'm also thankful to Janet Oakley. I should have mentioned Janet's name initially for her help as well. The other announcement that we made yesterday was about a $302 billion four-year surface transportation proposal. This follows the President's message at the State of the Union on his ideas about linking business tax reform to infrastructure investment. It's a big deal to have folks like Chairman Schuster, Senator Boxer, Chairman Camp, and their ranking members seriously talking about a way to go forward here, particularly in light of the crisis that's looming in the Highway Trust Fund, which I'll talk about later. Anyhow, I'm excited to be here in front of you. I just had a good conversation with the CEOs of AASHTO. And I want to talk a little bit today in more specific terms about what's at stake for us in the coming months. You all know that projects can't get done under a cloud of uncertainty. And over the last several years, that's what you've been working with. And it's a challenge for project sponsors to make long-term plans when Washington's given you short-term funding solutions. I'm hearing from states all around the country that as this crisis looms in the Highway Trust Fund, that around the middle part of the summer, you'll have to start making decisions on contracts, and there may be contracts that don't get re-upped because you don't know whether the funding is going to be in place. We've estimated that 700,000 jobs lie in the balance, and it is not only for that reason, but the reason that when we stop investing in our future, when we don't get these projects done that are out there on the books, ready to go around the country, we actually end up spending more money because when we eventually get back to those projects with inflation and other elements involved, those projects become more expensive. So we need your help reminding Congress that the most fiscally responsible thing to do is to get the Highway Trust Fund stabilized. And we believe as an administration that we should do more than just stabilize the Highway Trust Fund. We should put it on a course where there's more investment in infrastructure, more jobs being created, more pathways for these manufacturing jobs to be created in this country, and the free flow of goods around this country and getting people to work happens so that America can restore and renew its place as the preeminent transportation system in the world. The reality is, though, that many of our competitors are investing at deeper levels in infrastructure than we are. Countries like China are spending twice as much related to their GDP as we are on their infrastructure. And if that continues year after year after year, we're going to find ourselves at a disadvantage. The good news is that because of the work of groups like AASHTO and because of the visionary leadership of leaders going back generations, we still have the safest, most reliable, efficient transportation system in the world. But it's an advantage we can't take for granted. And that's the message we need to deliver to our Congress. I want to also mention to you that the political solution to this infrastructure deficit and the coming crisis is really local. It's really state by state, community by community. We need your help describing in very real terms what this issue means to members of Congress. What projects aren't going to get done? How much will those projects cost if they're delayed a year or two? How many jobs are at stake? What opportunities are we missing? Those are questions that you can describe in real terms so that this issue isn't an abstraction, something easy to dismiss. It's something that's very real to the folks back home. And we rely on you to help us with that. I can tell you things you already know about transportation. The fact that we've got 100,000 bridges old enough to qualify for Medicare. I can tell you that we've slipped 20 places over the last decade according to the World Economic Forum in the quality of our infrastructure. We now stand just behind Barbados, a country that has one airport. I can tell you that our team at USDOT has been working with all of you to try to do everything we can to squeeze every ounce of value out of the dollar that we're spending on transportation, including programs like Everyday Counts, where we have worked with you to do innovations such as installing 14 prefabricated bridges in the state of Massachusetts over 14 weeks, such as process innovation like warm mix asphalt. My team knows that's my favorite thing to talk about. This process requires less heat, but it gets you comparable strength, and it's going to save us $3.5 billion by 2020. And so it's that kind of thinking that we also need to add to the equation as we look at how to tackle the infrastructure deficit. Now, the reality is USDOT can be optimally efficient, but we will never be as efficient as we can be with federal dollars unless our states are efficient too. More than half of our budget goes to the states by way of the formula program. And so we want to join with you to really do even more than we all are already doing to promote efficiency. And just to give you kind of a benchmark, the McKinsey Group did a study about a year ago, and they looked at global infrastructure, and they looked at more than just transportation. They looked at water and schools and other things. But they found that globally, you could get the same infrastructure for 40% less cost. And there are a variety of strategies that they talk about in that study, some of which we're already doing in some ways at the federal level in some of the states. But let's just divide that number by half. Let's say we could get 20% savings. Well, if you look at map 21, that would have translated into $21 billion. which could be more projects getting done around the country. So we want to tackle this deficit in part by addressing the revenue challenges, but we also need to tackle it by addressing our ability to be efficient. Now, again, we're not starting from scratch. I look at the dashboard that was a part of the Recovery Act, where we took about 50 projects around the country and worked to get those projects moved through our permitting processes as quickly as possible. You take a project like the Tappan Zee Bridge, which had about 3 or 4 years of permitting baked into it based on what's on paper. You all know that sometimes 3 or 4 years on paper becomes 5 to 6 or 7 to 8 or 9 to 10. We got the permitting for that done in 15 months. And the question for us is, can we take an example like that and move it to scale? Can we actually make that the rule and not the exception? Those are some of the challenges that we want to confront at USDOT and solve. And we think that if we do that, if you do that, we're going to squeeze greater capacity out of the dollars that are flowing into transportation. We're going to get more projects done. We're going to strengthen our case for the revenues that are necessary to keep this country in first place. So that's essentially what I came to say to you today. It's great to be with you. I don't know if there's a Q&A portion of this program, but I'm happy to take a couple of questions from the audience here.